Patriots Beat podcast here on this Tuesday evening now, 6 p.m. start time for us. This is becoming a pretty regular time for the show. Sometimes we do it at 4. Tonight we're going to do it at 6 like yesterday. And before we get into football, I just want to throw out there that Alex and I are both dealing with some crises off the air. Me with a particular furniture company that I'm going to leave out. Alex with a particular car dealership that he can choose whether or not he wants to stay.
Let's get everything settled first, and then I may or may not tell
on my end too. I need to
tale.
get my furniture before I start reaming them out on the air. So if we get a little bit feisty in this show today, it is 110% to do with those instances.
We're looking for a fight, so we'll see how this goes.
This could go off the rails very quickly. But out there today at Patriots practice this morning, Tuesday morning, Patriots head coach Bill Belichick spoke to the media before practice. And as you would anticipate, in typical Belichick form, he deflected questions, dodged questions, whatever phrase you want to use, on quarterback Cam Newton and his ongoing COVID situation. And I thought there were some answers from Bill today, Alex, that were maybe more telling than what he was trying to lead on. And maybe he was dodging things, and he was obviously trying to deflect back to that statement that the team made Monday and refer back to that statement with pretty much every answer that he gave. But they were able to get a little bit out of that, right? In this press conference today. I think the biggest answer from Belichick in regards to Cam was he was asked directly, is this a competitive disadvantage for Cam Newton that he is not going to be able to practice due to the COVID protocols? And he said, of course, it's a competitive disadvantage. Why else do we practice, right? We practice to get better, and he's not out there. So if we couldn't gain anything from practice, then why would we do it? So that was a pretty obvious answer, but I guess a confirmation from the coach, it felt like a little bit that this does put Cam in a peculiar situation. He also mentioned that this was a huge week for Mac Jones. He
straight up
said that. It is.
And I was a little taken back. I was like, real? Like, I had to double check. Somebody said, is this a bigger opportunity for Mac Jones? He said, it is. Yes. Period. Stop. End of sentence. Full answer. Is this a bigger opportunity for Mac Jones? Yes. The other thing he said, are you good? Because I just kind of cut you off there. Okay. The other thing he said, let me pull up the transcript to make sure I get it correct, because the devil's in the details here with this one, as I get an email from the car dealership. I don't know if people can see how red my eyes are. It's burying the transcript. I don't know. All right. Anyway, I don't know where it is. Here it is. He was asked about Newton's status for Sunday.
Right.
And he kept saying, I don't have anything to add to the statement. When he was asked about the previous questions, is Cam healthy? I don't have anything to add to the statement. Do you expect Cam to be back on Thursday? Yes, if that's a time frame based on the statement. Statement. Somebody says, will Cam Newton, or is the plan to play Cam Newton in Sunday's game against the Giants? And he said, I don't have anything to add to that beyond the statement. There's nothing in the statement beyond
Thursday,
right? So, and I had Jim McBride on my 98.5 The Sports Hub podcast today, 98.5thesportshub.com. And what he said, and he's somebody who's generally pretty on the ball when it comes to Belichick, and he said, and this struck me, if Cam can't play Sunday, and maybe they feel like he hasn't had the reps, and remember, this isn't any preseason game. This is the dress rehearsal. So they are treating this like a prep week. And if they are going to treat Cam Newton's absence like an injury, which Bill sort of alluded to, starting quarterback doesn't practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, perhaps not Thursday. That court or any player, that player's probably not playing on Sunday.
Right.
And if Cam Newton doesn't play on Sunday, then there's a conversation. So we will see. I kind of didn't think of it because I'm still in the mindset of preseason. He's going to play on Sunday, whatever. But if he's not ready, and he's still a part of things virtually, but if they feel he's not ready, Mac's going to play. It's going to be Mac and Hoyer. So it'll be interesting to see what Cam Newton looks like on Thursday, just how ready he looks.
Coming off the heels of that Mike Giardi report, I think Mike tweeted that out, that the team is internally
that was just before
a little bit frustrated. It was right before Belichick took the podium, and then he gets to the podium and he says, this is a big week for Mac to basically audition and have this opportunity without Cam out there on the field, that Cam is behind the 8 ball now this week, essentially, is what he's saying, because he didn't go out and practice this week. And I think that all these types of things that you hear are definitely expressing at least a little bit of frustration publicly with Cam Newton. Now, maybe not with Cam Newton directly. Maybe this isn't about Cam. Maybe this is more about the protocols in the league and getting tripped up and all of that. So certainly you can deflect blame from Cam in any way that you want in that respect. But in terms of the situation as a whole, Belichick definitely seems a little bit ticked off that the Patriots are without their starting quarterback this week, especially as we've talked about so much, Alex, joint practices. Well, you have 2 golden opportunities against the Giants in joint practices. And then there's a lot of coaches that have come out the last couple of days and said that they plan on treating this third and final preseason game like the third preseason game every other year, right, and playing their starters at least the first half. Some teams even saying they might play into the second half. So basically the dress rehearsal for everybody is in week 3 of the preseason now, because there's 2 weeks of layoff between the preseason games, the start of the regular season. So there's plenty of time to rest up and get ready for week 1. So now it feels like the dress rehearsal game is this third and final game. And Cam, as you said, Alex, might not be prepared to play in that game.
Yeah, and I will add this to kind of backtrack a little bit to what you just said about, Bill being frustrated. And if we just read into the context, Patriots knew. They've known this whole time that this was a possibility. I kept, it was the, the meme where it's like Pikachu, right? Yeah. It's supposed to like ironic shock, Cam Newton not vaccinated. Cam Newton has to quarantine for being not vaccinated. The Patriots, right? Somebody's going to screen grab that. But yeah, they had to have known this was a possibility. Maybe he's frustrated with the league protocols. I don't know. But, we all know certain things are possibilities. We do them anyway. And sometimes it's, that slap in the face, it becoming reality that makes you change your mind. So we'll see. But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see what happens from here on out. Because if they are legitimately frustrated with him, right? Giardi said that they're frustrated. We don't know what they're frustrated with.
Right. And it sounded, and I want to make sure that we're clear that the press conference this morning, same thing, right? It seemed frustrated. Belichick seemed frustrated. That doesn't necessarily mean that he was frustrated with Cam.
I think what Giardi said, I should just pull up his tweet, right? I think he used the term, here it is. Loading. There is a level of, quote, there is a level of frustration internally with the Cam Newton situation.
Right.
The Cam Newton situation. So, I mean, we could sit here. We're not 2 to 6 on 98.5. We could sit here and break down what does every word of that mean? What does situation mean? Right. What does the mean in this context versus that context? But clearly they don't like what's going on. And the reality is, if you don't like what's going on, you want to change it. There's 2 things that, the rules are the rules. So you have to change Cam's vaccination status or change Cam being your starting quarterback. Those are the options, because you're not changing the rules, not this year.
Right. So before we get into putting Mac Jones and anointing Mac Jones as a starting quarterback, Mac Jones obviously needs to earn the starting quarterback job. Right. And I finally got my hands on the All 22 for the Patriots offense, the coaches film today, and looking at from Philly, yes.
Today's practice.
Right, yeah. I wish. From Philly, right? And Cam Newton hit on his couple of series that he played, especially that second and third series. The first one was the really short one after the fumble. The second and third series that he played, that was the best Cam Newton's looked maybe as a Patriot. Full stop. Right? I mean, it was really, really impressive tape. Going to the right places with the football, manipulating coverage down the field, knowing where your answers are, mechanically tied together. I mean, it was the whole package. Now, granted, it was against backups, yada, yada, yada. I get all that. But Mac was also against backups in that game and has been against backups a lot in training camp as well. So you see a really tied together, a really thorough and efficient Cam Newton against the Eagles. And it is a bummer that now Cam is dealing with all this and is put in this situation by his own account, right? Because no one forced him to not get the vaccine, like no one's forcing him to get the shot, right? So this was a bet that he kind of made it to a degree, but Mac Jones needs to go out there and earn it. And I'm not saying he hasn't, but today out there at practice, Alex, just to segue into what we actually saw on Tuesday morning out at practice, Did you feel like today was a day where Mac earned it? Because he definitely was better than yesterday. The 2 interceptions kind of put a damper on things just a little bit, but certainly a much better performance from Mac Jones today than what we saw on Monday.
Yeah, buckle up here in the chat, because I've kind of become the anti-Mac Jones guy, even though I've been banging the table for Mac since October. Mac was great today. I thought this was, I don't know if it was the best day he's had, top 3 for sure. And, the interceptions, I don't think were his fault. At least one of them definitely wasn't. One of them, J.C. Jackson just made a really good play, getting inside Gunnar Olszewski on a slant.
Right.
Rookie quarterbacks get beat by star corners. That happens to every rookie quarterback. And, he should make that throw. He made the right read. He made the right throw. He got beat by a better play. The other one, it seemed like there was a miscommunication on the route. The ball's a little behind Gunnar, but I'm not sure Gunnar ran the route where he was supposed to, just based on where everybody else's routes were, right? I'd have to show it to really explain it.
It was a mesh crossing concept where
you want to explain it. Go ahead.
Both crossers going like this in the shallow, right? So you have the 2 crossers over the middle. They've ran this concept a bunch. So I would assume that's something that Mac is really comfortable with from Alabama. And it looked like he held on Johnny Smith's corner route a little bit. And he was actually talking to Johnny Smith after the play and felt like maybe he thought Johnny was going to do something just a little bit different to give him a chance to throw that ball. And it didn't end up happening. So then he comes back to the shallow cross from Gunnar, and he's a little late. He's a little behind it. Now, the adjustment that maybe he thought that Gunnar was going to make to kind of provide context, Devin McCourty was sitting outside the route. J.C. Jackson was sitting inside the route. So instead of continuing across the field into Devin McCourty, maybe Mac thought that Gunnar was going to sit it down, right, and just stay right there in between the 2 defenders. That's not necessarily the way the play was drawn up, but in the Patriots system, you never run into coverage. You never want to run into a defender's zone. So maybe that's what he thought, and that's why he threw the ball where he threw it. But yeah, off Gunnar's hands into Devin McCourty's lap. Looks like it would have been a pick 6, even if there was live tackling, because Devin was gone.
We all know how Devin McCourty can take off. It's
a
really beautiful thing to see. But yeah, I thought Mac was great. There was one period, and this was, so today's reps weren't padded. And sometimes we talk about the non-padded practice being less competitive. It was pretty competitive today. It was as high speed in non-pads as you're ever going to see. And for what you lose in non-pads, the fact that, so the part of practice I'm talking about, at one point he was 18 of 19. I think he finished 30 of 37. Okay. But at one point he was 18 of 19, and most of that came during 2-minute drill. During, 2 minutes on the clock, he had X number of timeouts. He's using the sideline. He's going here and there. Both drives during that stretch, and some of it wasn't 2-minute drill, but there were 2 full 2-minute drill drives during that 18 of 19 stretch. He scored touchdowns on both of them, and that raises the intensity. So where you don't have the same contact, right, without pads, I still say they're quality reps, because maybe he's not competing against a defense that's going 100%, but he's competing against a clock, and the clock is what the clock is. They're not using, 1 Mississippi and a half to count seconds. The clock is what it is. So yeah, I thought Mac and then his command I was talking to Mike Reese about this at practice. The difference in Mac's voice between
that's definitely
the beginning of camp and now. And when I say his voice, I mean ready. I'm not going to do it right now because I'm going to feel like an idiot. But he doesn't say ready. It's Alpha Go.
Please do it. Yeah, the Patriots use Alpha
Go.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They didn't always. They used to use I-90 or I something, I-20.
They've used Alpha Go for a long time, since I really started breaking down the tape, going all the way back to Brady's days.
5 or 6 years. Brady used to. There was one with an I with Brady. That was early Brady. But anyway, like his Alpha Go, the way he, the way he's making commands at the line, he's moving people around now, right? He's like, John, to move over a little bit. You come here, right? Night and day from the start of camp. So, and I thought it just kind of all came together today. And again, I said this yesterday on the show. I think everybody was looking at Mac to have that day where, okay, so Cam doesn't show up and now Mac balls out. Okay. Like everybody wanted that moment. We didn't get it. I don't think Mac was bad yesterday. He wasn't good. He wasn't bad. Wasn't his best day, wasn't his worst. It was in the top half. It was okay.
Right.
Today was more so the day I think people wanted him to have yesterday, where, Cam's not there, Mac's the number 1, and he takes it and runs with it. Wasn't perfect, I don't know that it was his best day, but it was top 3, and he was freaking good today.
Yeah, if he continues to stack these positive days together and plays like he did out there on Tuesday, then that's going to allow him to gain ground on Cam Newton, whether or not Cam Newton is out there or not, right? And tomorrow against the Giants, you said it yesterday on the pod, one of the biggest training camp practices in a long time.
This might be. I originally said this to my friend as a joke, and the more I think about it, the more I think it's true.
Huge.
In terms of an individual practice, and going in, there's been practices that walking away were monumental. We all remember when that Bucks lineman fell into Brady's knee and whatever that was, 2015, right?
Yep.
Heading into the practice, in terms of the anticipation for an individual practice, this may be the biggest training camp practice in Patriots history.
It's massive because it's another defense, right? It's a different defense.
It's all so unique. It's all so unique. And yes, the defense is part of it.
Right. It's a different defense. He's going to go up against the Giants starters. He's going to get all the reps because Cam isn't out there. So we're going to see a ton of today. He attempted, I think, 39 passes. Was it?
I had him 30, or Matt Dahl, if I use his numbers, had him 30 for 37. Everybody had slightly different numbers because some people, he spiked the ball a couple times.
So I took a few throws that I felt like that they weren't going full speed at. So I had him 29 to 34, but whichever way you want to slice it, 30, let's call it 30 to 40 throws today, right? Just to make it a big number, a big range there a little bit. And tomorrow he'll probably throw just as many passes with pads on against a defense he's never seen before, against a defense that should be okay. I don't think the Giants are going to be a top 5 defense by any means, but I think okay.
We got some pieces.
Yeah. And when you see all of this out there today, I think the biggest thing that stood out today, and it continues to stand out with Mac, is just his ability to understand what he's looking at pre-snap, right? He has a really good feel of the cadences, the motions, the movements by the defense pre-snap. And today he was out there, and on the right side of the formation, you have an overload blitz stacked on the right side. And he knows that the blocking is going to block down towards the overload side to make sure that they account for everybody. But on the back side of the formation is Josh Uche. And if Josh Uche comes off that backside, sometimes they'll drop that backside edge defender into coverage to replace a linebacker that's coming in the blitz. If Josh Uche blitzes off the edge, Mac knows he's hot. He has to throw hot because there's nobody blocking him, right? He's going to be an unblocked rusher. And he has the wherewithal already to understand that, okay, my line's blocking down. This guy's going to be unblocked. If he comes, I got to throw hot. Josh Uche comes off the edge. Sony Michel peels off into the flat on a little swing route, and Mac tosses it out to Sony Michel for a completion and beats the blitz with his mind and with his arm, right? And you see those two things, and you say, wow, that's good quarterbacking. The other thing that you saw from him today was the dime to Jacoby Meyers in the slot. Midway through practice, even got a fist pump out of Josh McDaniels, right? And
is this the touchdown?
Yeah, the touchdown to Meyers. Yeah. And
play of the day.
When you look at that throw, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure. I wish I had the tape. We don't. I'm pretty sure that's a single high look, man to man. And you can just sort of read the cornerbacks and the way that they're standing. And if they're standing facing towards the quarterback with their eyes in the backfield, or if they're kind of squared up on the receiver, you get a feel of if it's man to man or zone before the snap. And Mac just knew that it was man to man, and he knew that he had single high, and he knew that he had Jacoby on the slot fade. And there's just no way that the safety in the middle of the field is going to be able to get there if he puts the ball in the right spot. And it's just a decision that he makes just instantly when the ball is snapped. As soon as he confirms the safety rotation, ball is out to Jacoby Meyers. And these types of quick decisions and decisive decisions with the football, that is what Josh McDaniels is looking for. And when he talks about setting the table pre-snap and being able to get everybody positioned pre-snap and understand what the defense is showing you and using all the information at your disposal, that is what they want. right? That is what they want out of this offense. And we consistently see that every single practice from Mac. And now we're starting to see it. He's throwing to Jacoby Meyers against Jonathan Jones with Dante Hightower and Matt Judon. And this is the starters, right? These are not backup players anymore for Mac Jones. And same with the blitz that I mentioned earlier, where he read the hot. That's Josh Uche coming off the edge. That's a player that's going to be right in the mix for the Patriots this year, probably a starter when all things are said and done. So you see all of these things from Mac consistently every single day, that he's able to get the offense to the line of scrimmage, read it out pre-snap, confirm it quickly post-snap, and make quick, decisive, accurate decisions with the football. Cam looked great against the Eagles. Cam's situation with COVID, I still am not sold that that's going to have a huge say in the starting job because, like you've been saying, Alex, they know he's unvaccinated.
Right.
They know what boat they're on with Cam Newton.
Right.
But the point of the matter is that Mac is showing that he is definitely coming. Right. He is coming and he is playing extremely well.
Yeah. So where it does impact the starting job, I don't think it impacts the starting job for week 1. I still think pending some further issue where Cam Newton isn't ready to practice next week, right after the Giants. I still think that he's the starter week 1. What it does do in terms of the starting job is, and I'll go back to my dumb little analogy that I kind of wish I phrased better when I first made it, but we'll stick with it. The checklist, right? Mac Jones is a checklist and he has to check off 150 things before he can start. It's like if you ever played NCAA football 14, EA Sports, if you did the Road to Glory player, you had to reach you start as a 4th string. And then once you got a certain level of XP, you were the 3rd string. And in the 2nd string, up and up and up, right?
Right.
This gives Mac more time to gain that XP. It gives him more time to check things off the list. He threw almost 40 passes today. That's a lot in a training camp practice.
Right. Against starting first team players. Right.
Tom Brady didn't throw 40 passes in a practice. Like, he didn't have this workload when he was the unquestioned starter, best quarterback in league MVP. He didn't do this much. So this is an unprecedented amount of time for Mac Jones to gain ground on Cam Newton. Because this is what I've said all along. The quarterback competition is not about week 1. The quarterback competition is how much can Mac close the gap so he doesn't have to do as much once the regular season starts to catch Cam Newton. And this is a great chance for Mac to come in and to close that gap. Yesterday, did a little bit. I don't know that he, really seized the opportunity the way we wanted him to. He did that today. He carped some diem today.
He did seize the day.
What movie is that from?
Well, it's just a saying that everybody uses, but I love your analogies.
So people say carpe diem. Oh, it's Rick and Morty. Carpe some diem.
I absolutely love how you use analogies from NCAA 14 on this show, though.
I think it's a very, very popular game. Can't wait for NCAA 23 or whatever the first one is back. But in the chat, if you played NCAA 14, especially Road to Glory, I think a lot of people did. It was a fun game mode. Show some respect. You would have enjoyed it, Evan. If you had any semblance of fun bone in your body, you would have enjoyed it.
I used to play some NCAA. I like that.
And you didn't play Road to Glory?
I think I was already out by the time that game mode came in.
You were out early. But
I was out early.
Road to Glory was the mode, like, instead of controlling one team, you control like one player and you pick where you go to school and like you have your career, you try to get drafted. No, like superstar mode. No,
I remember what you're talking about. I definitely played it a little bit more in Madden than in.
It was different in the college one. You probably haven't played it in years. I played it like 2 weeks ago. So there you go. Somebody, thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Brendan.
Okay,
for getting it.
So
see, here they come. Road to Glory, Nebraska. No, great school to pick. Great uniforms. I don't know what position you are, but we'll continue this in the chat. Great pick.
So Alex is just excited that somebody wants to talk NCAA 14 with him, but we've done enough, I think, on Mac Jones and Cam Newton. The situation hasn't changed all that much. I still think that the Patriots are. I think there's a bigger plan in place here, right? And we talked yesterday on the show, Alex, about Miami with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua. They decided that they were going to put Tua in, what was it, week 6 or 7, before the season even started. They made that decision at the end of training camp that he was going to be ready by this general time and we want him in there by this general time. And they went out and did that, regardless of how Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing. And that I do think I don't know what the plan is. I don't know if they have a date picked in mind or a week picked in mind. That might be too literal for Bill Belichick and not enough reacting to the moment and kind of evolving with the situation. But I still think that they have a bigger picture in mind here. And I don't think that one training camp practice or 1 week of training camp practices is necessarily going to change their minds completely about the overall plan that they have at the quarterback position, the big picture plan. But the COVID situation opens the door, right? I mean, that as Giardi said, it opens a window of opportunity for Mac Jones.
Did it open the window or door? Those two different things. Or is it one of those doors with the window in it?
Yeah, both. Because I don't think that there was much of an opening before for Mac to start early in the season, week 1, whatever you want to call it. I don't think that there was much of a opening in the window because I don't think that they want to rush Mac Jones out there. I don't think that they feel the need to rush Mac Jones out there. But now that this situation has presented itself, and as we've said, it's not even so much about Mac Jones's performance with the reps. It's just the sheer number of reps in general. It's just going to make him more comfortable. It's just going to make him better. It's just going to make him adjust to the speed of the NFL and figure out the playbook and learn his receivers and build chemistry with guys like Jacoby Meyers and Johnny Smith, who he hit with a bunch of passes out there today as well. That's the ultimate thing. And that kind of segues me into the next point on the offense that I wanted to bring.
Hang on. Let me just add to that real quick.
Yeah.
Because this is what I've been saying and what people have disagreed with me on, and it kind of backs up what you just said. What it comes down to for Mac Jones is experience. It's the one element of his game where he can't, no matter what he does, beat Cam Newton. But the more experience he has, the better. This isn't game experience, but experience is experience. And I'd love for you to answer the question somebody asked about Mac being a fit, but we can skip that one because the way they worded it was fantastic.
Mac being a fit in the offense?
If you want to scroll back, Michael Aguilar. Evan, now that you see Mac in the system, do you agree that Mac was the QB for us like Alex called it? I just think that's a beautiful way to word that question.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked the part. He's definitely done the things that they've asked him to do. And I think the biggest thing that you see with him is so many, as I consistently say on this show, so many Patriot-like things, right? Attributes that they look for in quarterbacks. Even let's take Tom Brady out of it. Even guys like what attracted them so much and what they love so much about Jimmy Garoppolo. Right, there's elements of Mac's game before the snap, and then the ability to throw the ball down the field accurately after the snap and on time, in rhythm, all those anticipation, all those types of things. The fit there is just, it's screaming in your face, right? It's just screaming in your face. But I want to move on from the quarterbacks. They're just sticking with the offense. The one other takeaway that I had from today, and I want to call him Mr. Consistent, Mr. Reliable. I don't know. 7-Eleven's already been used so many different times, so I feel like that nickname is...
Yeah, it's been beat today. Charles Johnson sucked, and he was nicknamed 7-Eleven.
Well, so Chris Hogan was nicknamed 7-Eleven for a little while.
Like 10 years later. Oh, speaking of nicknames, by the way, somebody had this in the comments on the last show.
Yes.
Matt Judon, just calling him the Don.
That's not bad.
That might be it.
Anyway, continue. So I think that the player, maybe 24/7, I don't like 7-Eleven because it's already been used, like I just said. But the player I'm talking about is Jacoby Meyers. He goes out there every single day in practice, and he's not the flashiest receiver. That's probably Nelson Aguilar. He's not the most explosive guy. Maybe that's Aguilar or Johnny Smith, right? Those guys make flashier plays. Today, Jonnu made a catch going up above Adrian Phillips and snagged the ball over the middle, made a great catch there. But when you consistently see Jacoby Meyers get open day in and day out, and right now, he's the straw that stirs the drink. These other guys make the big plays here and there, and those are the guys that maybe they're going to target down the field a little bit more. But the straw that stirs the drink is one Jacoby Meyers. He just consistently impresses me today. 6 of 7 for Mac Jones. Had a deep crosser that Mac overthrew just a little bit. That would have been a walk-in touchdown if he didn't overthrow that pass. So really, he should have been 7 for 7 with 3 touchdowns in this practice out there today. Really impressive camp, really impressive preseason. Jacoby Meyers, don't sleep on him, right? This guy's wide receiver one in my book.
Yeah, I think, and that's really what the offense lacked last year. I think more than anything else was consistency. And you can get into the little reasons for consistency, Cam Newton's accuracy, the wide receiver talent, right? Injuries, whatever. But like the overarching thing last year was consistency, because there were moments, right? The Seattle game, the comeback against the Jets, the one throw to Damiere Byrd in Houston, which was probably the best throw of the year. Like there were moments of brilliance, and they just couldn't be consistent. And Meyers was the closest thing they had to consistency last year. Unfortunately, he didn't really play. He didn't play the entire season. He played a good chunk of it, but there were some key games early that he was, I don't remember if he was a healthy scratch or if he just didn't play, whatever. But yeah, they need that. That's what they missed with Julian Edelman. Run out 8 yards, 8 to 12 yards, find the hole in coverage, sit down, get the ball, fall down. Like that. It sounds easy. It sounds simple. It's not, but it's so, so important for them to do what they want to do offensively. And you'd like to think Jacoby Meyers is going to be that guy. I mean, we've talked about him and Edelman's role. He's talked about his relationship with Julian Edelman and how he kind of followed him around for the last 2 years. But, this is what you hope he can be.
It's impressive that he can get open over the top of the defense too. Like on the slot fade today in practice, he's not supposed to win on that route, right? He's a 4.6 guy. He's a high, maybe he's faster than that. Maybe he just ran a bad.
I mean, he's working against a slot corner, so it's all relative.
I guess so, but Jonathan Jones is one of the fastest guys in the league. And
the fastest player on the team, according to Madden.
Right, and he shouldn't get open over the top on Jonathan Jones, and he's still able to do it because of his releases and because of his suddenness and his explosiveness. He's still able to do it. There was also a route over the middle in the red zone, low red zone, where he just paced it out extremely well. He let the vertical clear it out, and then he kind of paused almost, and you thought like the controller broke, right? To use one of your video game references.
There we go.
You thought the controller broke for a second, and then once the coverage kind of went upfield with the rest of the receivers, he then broke it out quickly on a slant and exploded through the route, and boom, touchdown, right? These are just consistent plays you see out of Jacoby every single day. Extremely impressive. The other offensive storyline
so hang on real quick with that, because somebody asked in the chat how Jacoby gets open, and this is kind of what we're explaining, and I want to give him the credit for this because it's really impressive what he does,
right?
And I want people to understand it. And he's talked about before, remember, Jacoby Meyers originally was recruited in college as a quarterback, and he's talked in the past about still seeing the game through a quarterback's eyes. And Julian Edelman, same thing, right? Former quarterback. He gets open with his brain, and that,
and quickness.
Quickness is part of it. It's, against zone coverage, for instance, right? There's going to be holes in zone coverage. That's the way the zone works. He's able to, like a quarterback, read the zone, figure out where the hole is going to be, whatever, does he have a specific route? To marry those two concepts would take us 15 minutes to explain. End of the day, he knows how to get to the spot that he needs to be in. That's also holding the zone, get there and catch the ball. And that's exactly what Julian Edelman did. That's how Julian Edelman won. And then you use that quickness to kind of take it to another level after the catch, et cetera, or even before the catch. Quickness comes into play in man coverage, but that's what Jacoby's doing. They need somebody to do that. This offense doesn't run unless you have somebody going out 8 to 12 yards and sitting down in the hole in the zone. That the whole thing, everything else is built from that starting point. So,
right. And that's why
the fact he's doing that is great.
And not to bring this always
it's harder. It's harder than it sounds. Sorry, it's harder than it sounds. It sounds easy. Oh, so he just runs over and stands there.
Right.
It's a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah, and the ability to beat man coverage all comes from his feet, right? And he's extremely quick in and out of his breaks. He's extremely quick at the line of scrimmage, efficient at the top of the route, doesn't have any wasted steps, doesn't drift in his routes, extremely good at coming downhill on the top of the route as well. But you see all of these movements. It's not just quickness. What I think it's explosiveness, right? It's sudden explosiveness. It's not necessarily explosiveness in the same way that Nelson Aguilar gets over the top of the defense and runs a go route or a deep post. It's sudden explosiveness in that 3x3 area, right? And just being able to change gears and all of a sudden go from basically jogging to all out cut speed and going 100 miles an hour through the break, those types of sudden movements are really, really difficult because corners sit there and they try to read it out and they try to feel it out. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's open. Right. And that's what Jacoby Meyers brings to the table. And not to relate this all the way back to the quarterbacks always, but
that's football. That's football.
As you said, the foundation of this offense, and there's a play that I want to put up on Twitter after this. You can guess, but I don't know if you're going to get this one.
Haas wide juke?
No.
Okay.
It's a play by Mac Jones.
Oh, like a specific play.
Yeah,
I get
against the Eagles on the tape that really stood out to me because all the downfield throws are great, yada, 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 whatever, right? But this throw is 3rd and 7 in the red zone, money down, and they have a 3-by-1 formation. Gunner is the inside man in the slot on the 3 receiver side. They run post wheel to clear out the coverage, and all they do is get Gunner open at the sticks on a little option route, and Mac Jones just reads out the leverage and throws the football, right? So that to me, like you said, that 3rd and 7 play where the receiver reads out the coverage, beats a man to man, gets open at 8 yards, sits down somewhere and moves the chains. That's the Patriots offense. And that's what we consistently see Mac be able to operate in, is that those quick passes, those quick decisions, the move the chains types of throws. The consistency there from Mac Jones has really been off the charts all training camp and preseason. Regardless of who he's going up against, the processes there are really, really clean. And that, I think, is the most important thing. The other thing I wanted to mention just quickly about the offense, it was a non-padded practice out there today, so not much to glean on the offensive line or the defensive line. But in terms of what we saw out of the Patriots receivers, am I going too far to say that the Patriots almost missed N'Keal Harry a little bit on the outside? Because I talked about this with you after practice, that over the last 2 days, they attempted a goal line fade to Nelson Aguilar, incomplete. They attempted a goal line fade to Kendrick Bourne, incomplete. And then Gunner gets muscled off the spot by J.C. Jackson on a slant, where he's giving up some size and certainly giving up some play physicality. And when I look at these receivers that they have when N'Keal isn't out there, they have Jonnu. Hunter Henry didn't practice full today, but they technically would have Hunter Henry as well. But when I look at these receivers, Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Meyers, Gunner, if he's going to be out there for his receiver snaps, not a ton of size, right? There's just not a ton of size, and there's not a ton of ability to, on the outside, go up there and win that jump ball. That's not the highest percentage throw in the world. So I'm okay with the fact that they're not going to throw that all the time anyways. But in terms of having some size out there and having some ability to just be a big body target on the outside, unless you're going to consistently flex out Jonnu or Hunter Henry and trust them to basically run X receiver routes, N'Keal Harry's size is something that has stood out all throughout camp to me. And watching them practice without him over the last couple of days, it has stood out that they haven't had that option outside the numbers in terms of size and ability to win uncontested catches.
Yeah, they're missing size. I don't know that it has to be N'Keal Harry. Obviously, he's been very good, and it's convenient. All right, you're missing size. You have a big receiver who wasn't out there, but I would say in the same breath, all right, and they're missing Hunter Henry, who was in a non-contact jersey today. So, they're missing size. You're right. I think having N'Keal back certainly helps with that, but I don't know that N'Keal is the lone solution. Like, I don't know that you put N'Keal back in the lineup and the size thing is fixed. I think Hunter Henry is a big part of that equation. And even with both of those guys, I don't know that, I don't know if there's room on the roster for another big body, but I don't know that adding another big body hurts either. So, yeah, no, they missed N'Keal. There was a play yesterday, too, where they threw a fade to the back corner to Nelson Aguilar, and J.C. Jackson just bullied him out of the spot, and he didn't pick it off. He broke it up. But I turned to either you or Matt Dolph, and I said, yeah, they throw that play to N'Keal. It's a touchdown.
Right.
So, yeah, no, size is an issue, but I think it goes beyond N'Keal Harry. I think it's missing N'Keal Harry and missing Hunter Henry and still maybe not quite being there.
Right. I just wonder.
But N'Keal helps. N'Keal helps.
It's easy to sit here and say that you just flex out Hunter Henry or just flex out Jonnu, but having a tight end like those guys run detached from the formation, basically, like I said earlier, lining up as an X receiver. That's a lot easier said than done in a lot of ways, right? Tight end route trees, tight end routes in general are much different from wide receiver routes. You're running inside the formation. Sometimes you're running with your hand in the dirt off the line of scrimmage in that sense. But mostly tight ends, even guys like Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, these pass catching tight ends are in line or in the slot. They're very few reps do you actually get true outside work from a tight end. So I don't know. It's just something that's caught my eye that they've been down at the goal line and the defense is clearly all over Jonnu Smith and trying to take away anything over the middle of the Jonnu, and Jacoby Meyers is also getting some extra attention and they're trying to push the ball outside the numbers, and that's not Aguilar's game. That's not really Kendrick Bourne's game, and they just don't have anybody else to win that one-on-one matchup on the route.
Hunter, again, I go back to Hunter, Nikhil, and Hunter Henry as well. I know you're saying that, running from the X's, the tight end's a little different, but especially down there in the red zone close to the goal line, there's ways to maybe manufacture size, even without having that true X on the field. You can find mismatches. This is something that they've always been very good at. Granted, that was with Tom Brady, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, a couple of more things from today's practice, and I want to get to some of the roster moves that the Patriots made this afternoon to get down to 80, and also adding tight end Kahale Warring, who
I wanted to ask you about that.
Made me excited. But let's get into two more things here really quickly. First one, J.C. Jackson, awesome day out there today. 2 interceptions for J.C. in 11-on-11s. Got all over Gunner on that slant route. Joked after practice that he needed to get him back for the play at the end of practice on Monday, comes back today, makes the read, drives on the ball, basically the same exact play, and was able to make the play and get the interception. Also made a great interception to Brian Hoyer, ranging over the top of the defense, kind of replacing the post safety in the deep part of the coverage and being able to run the ball down in the middle of the field. I think that there's been a lot of people on my Twitter that have been tweeting at me saying, you've been saying a lot that JC Jackson, not that I've written that JC Jackson's been not playing up to CB1 status, but that a lot of guys are beating JC Jackson, right? I highlight a throw and it happens to be on JC Jackson. Like yesterday, I tweet out that Gunner beat JC Jackson on a slant. How have you felt that JC Jackson has practiced so far in camp? And do you see him taking the next step here this year?
Yeah, I think he's been great. I said in the training camp headlines today for 98.5, you can check those out on the 98.5 Instagram page, that I think he's been stellar. I think he's been one of their best defensive players this summer. It's been him or Adrian Phillips. And, it's so tough for corners between the non-contact and it's just different 7-on-7, 11-on-11. It's just, or not, 11-on-11, not 11-on-11, sorry. It's just different 7-on-7 and 1-on-1.
Right.
You need the whole team on defense. You may play certain routes where you have help over the top, and then you're doing that in 1-on-1, and obviously there's no help over the top. And you want to think a guy can do that anyway, but it changes things. So the reps that really matter, the opportunities he's truly had, J.C. Jackson's been excellent, and they need him to be excellent. They have no other option for him than him being excellent this year if they want to win football games. But I am by no means concerned. I see no major red flags in the way J.C. Jackson's performed this summer. I think, with whatever it is, 2-3 practices to go, he's done as much as you can ask.
I agree. I think he's been good, and I think in some situations – I wonder, and today wasn't the day to ask him because he had such a good day, so it wasn't necessarily the right moment to ask him. But I did also want to ask him how much do you try to do things a little bit differently, kind of test the waters a little bit on certain things, learn from certain things, and just try things out in practice, right? Because we know that J.C. Jackson can play man-to-man coverage with the best of them, right? You put him in press man coverage, he's as good as almost anybody at doing that on the outside. But in practice and in games, as he said last year, J.C. mentioned nobody's going to throw the ball deep on me. Everybody knows that I'm great at defending the deep ball. They're going to try to beat me in other ways, and beating him underneath the defense, whether it be a slant or a cross or a dig route or whatever the case may be. The teams had found a little bit of success doing that, right? They have no success throwing the ball over the top on J.C. Jackson. But if you're going to throw at him, the best way to throw it at him is to throw it underneath him, right? And try to make him cover an in-breaking route. So I do wonder some of the slip-ups that we've seen, has he been trying some new things to maybe cover the in-breakers a little bit better this year than what he has in the past? And you learn from it, right? And you practice is the time that you take some chances and you try to learn some new things or try out some new things. So some of the times that you say, oh, J.C. Jackson was beat on this play, was beat on that play, I do wonder how much of it is that as well, because again, when he locks in and he's just playing straight up man coverage, he's as good as everybody out there, if not better, right? So I also don't see much concern. I'm sure that once we get into the season, you're going to see him locked all the way in. The last thing that I wanted to mention on Tuesday, the kicker competition.
Before we get to that, your boy Yadni had another good day.
He did. Yadni's great. Yadni is great. I love this. I think this is a great story, right? Like
it really is.
If this player from sitting out 2 years can come and actually, even if he just makes the roster, right? And even if he's just a swing tackle in his NFL career, even if he just pans out to be Leadrian Waddle, that's still a great story, because this is a guy that probably shouldn't be here right now. That he's been hurt for 2 straight years, just IR'd during training camp, no chance to make the team, right? No chance to be active during the season. Comes back in year 3 and has played extremely well from, I would say, the end of Eagles joint practices on. Right. It started slow. It looked ugly against Washington. And now he's been able to get to, from basically last week on, very, very solid. And who knows what it will end up becoming? Who knows if he'll end up becoming a star? Probably not. Right. Who knows if he'll end up becoming a starter? Who knows? But at the end of the day, he's looked great. It was for the last week or so. And I love it. I think that's a great story.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And they need him too. They need him. It's not like it's a feel-good story, but is there room on the roster? They need that depth on the offensive line. I mean, him continuing to play like this and making the team makes the team better. So, sometimes you have those guys that are fun stories, but it's just not in the cards. No, there's a legitimate spot for him to help this team, which makes it all the more fun.
Yeah, don't sleep on Alex Redmond. I agree in the chat. Don't sleep on him. Great tape against Philadelphia. Blocks angry. Interior guy that can help out. We both know I think we both might have had 7 or 8 offensive linemen on our last 53-man roster projections, and we both know that it's going to be more than that, right? Yeah. I mean, it has to be more than that. I don't know if they would go Redmond over Ferentz just because of Ferentz's ability to play center, but Redmond can probably play both guard spots, and he's a mean guy. He's a lunch pail, put your hard hat on, and he blocks extremely hard. And they like that. They like guys that motors run hot, that they're physical, that they finish. They like that type of stuff. They have that old school mentality for sure.
Yeah, I'm still not sold on Redmond. He struggled a lot at the beginning of camp.
He did.
And I know we're supposed to, I've been the one that, the more important stuff's at the end. I can't get, and I normally like professional athletes named Alex. I'm normally super into it. It's fun for me, but I don't know. I can't get into it. We'll see. Maybe it changes. I feel like I'm picking on the guy. Like he hasn't done anything to me personally.
Let's watch him the next couple of days against the Giants. Let's watch him on Sunday. If he puts another good tape out there on Sunday, I think he has a chance. I do. I think he plays the position the way that they like. Okay, kickers. Quinn Nordin, not so hot today, I would say. He was kicking on the narrow post, which is obviously much harder than the regular post, so I'll give him that. But what do you think about this situation, Alex? What were you thinking about Quinn Nordin today? Because he was 2 for 5. Some people might have had him 3 for 5, depending on your judgment call of the regular goal posts. But I would say there were a couple of kicks that were just nowhere close. Right. I mean, they were wide left, wide right shanks. And maybe the skinny goalpost gets in your head a little bit and you're just trying to be too perfect. I don't know. But how do you feel about Quinn Nordin today? Because Nick Folk was yesterday. Quinn Nordin seemed to have the day today in terms of kicking. Yeah,
it's so tough to tell because they have done field goal block drills this year, and some of those misses were bad. So I don't know. it feels kind of mental at this point. I'm still where I'm at. It's either Nick Folk or they go elsewhere. I don't think Nordin's ready. I think they get him on the practice squad. I'm not giving up on him long term. I'd like to see him next summer after he has a full season to work with, Cam McCord and his coaching staff. But
right.
I don't think he's there.
Me neither. All right, moving on from that, let's talk some Kahale Warring. Let's also talk the roster cuts that the Patriots made today. I don't think there were any real surprises. Devin Ross, Malik Gant, RJ Prince, who we both thought was going to get cut from the 90 to the 85. So that one was really not a surprise. And who am I forgetting? Oh, Brian Corey, the long snapper, of course, is not going to make the team with Joe Cardona here. So those 4 cuts were not a surprise. Marcus Martin goes on IR. That's the 5th move to get down to 80. But then the Patriots placed a waiver claim for a tight end, Kahale Warring from the Houston Texans. And Kahale Warring is a player that I scouted out of San Diego State and absolutely loved what I saw there. It's a ball of clay. And they can afford to do that because they have Hunter Henry, they have Jonnu. I think Devin Asiasi and Matt Lacoste are both further along than Kahale Warring is at this point. He was extremely late to football. Started playing football his senior year of high school, basically had no offers coming out of high school, goes to San Diego State to play both football and, no joke, water polo. Also, really good water polo player. And he's just got a ton of raw upside and athletic abilities. 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds, and moves extremely well. So this is a developmental ball of clay for the Patriots at the tight end position. If this was last year and the Patriots signed a guy like Kahale Warring, you would sit there and say, what are we doing at tight end? But now that they have Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, these are the types of guys you want to get in here, maybe keep on the practice squad for the year and see if you can develop him.
So he kind of reminds me of another guy the Patriots, I don't know if they claimed him off waivers or signed, like throwaway tight end from the Texans. That's Steven Anderson. And obviously Anderson, I think he actually played 16 games last year. He did. So he did turn into, a real player, but just at, big athletic tight end. A guy that, like you said, ball of clay that they can just kind of mold and turn into somebody. He's probably a longer term project player. I still think Devin Asiasi gets that 3rd spot. Maybe they had their heart set on keeping 4 tight ends and Matt Lacoste won't be back in time. He would be a good replacement for Matt Lacoste, but I think with 16 spots on the practice squad now instead of 10, teams are just kind of looking a little deeper there, right?
Right.
And also you can keep more players, it's not just rookies and second-year guys. So I think Warring would still be eligible anyway. But yeah, no, I don't know that this move impacts 2021 at all, but I think he's a good player to have in the building. And now they have him in the building.
Right. I spoke to Steph Stradley, who covers the Texans down there for the Houston Chronicle, and she said that Kahale Warring's had some moments in training camp, certainly, where it has flashed, and he's got really great speed and footwork for a guy of his size, like a rare size speed type of prospect. Very, very raw. Like I said, late to football, didn't play much football growing up. So we'll see what happens. I think that's a nice pickup for this time of year, just to have him on, stash him on the practice squad. I saw somebody ask, was he a better prospect coming out than Dalton Keene? I thought he was a better prospect coming out than Dalton Keene. He was drafted right around that tight end. There's a bunch of tight ends drafted. The Patriots started with Asiasi, and that kind of snowballed into everybody picking up a tight end from that 3rd to the 4th round there. That's why the Patriots came back up and got Dalton Keene, because they were worried that he was going to go before their next pick. And it was a lot of tight ends in that area. So I can't remember exactly if Warring went before Keene, but I thought that Warring was a better prospect. I thought he was a better downfield receiver than what Dalton Keene had showed in college. Dalton Keene showed absolutely nothing as a downfield receiver. And so it was I thought Kahale Warring was a better prospect. It's good to see them. They obviously liked him when they scouted him, right? They obviously liked him in the draft as well. So it was a good little signing. I like it. Good little signing.
That you were asking who went higher in the draft?
Yes.
Well, they were different years.
Were they different years?
Warring was 19. Keene was 20.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's
where my brain is at.
But, so this is interesting. Warring, 86th overall pick. You know who the 87th overall pick in that draft was?
Damian Harris.
Damian Harris. That's
yeah.
right.
Okay. So that's that draft. See, sometimes
it's funny. I
looked
up Waring earlier just to get like his information to write the post for 98.5thesportshub.com. And I see just Texans fans bitching that they didn't get Damian Harris, like, look who went the next pick. I'm like, that's us. We're normally the ones doing that. Oh, look who went the next pick. Look who we could have had, that's normally Patriots fans. But yeah, Texans fans were on that one bad today with Damian Harris and Waring. So now the Pats have both. So there you go. That's a win. But Bill Belichick can't draft, so whatever.
Okay, Alex. So let's wrap this up. One thing you are looking for out of joint practices tomorrow with the New York Giants, not Mac Jones. You can't say Mac. We're obviously going to all be watching Mac. Is there one thing?
Biggest single training camp practice in Patriots history. Yes. Yeah, I'll give you one. I'm looking at the Giants corners. I am looking at the Giants corners.
What about their kicker?
Yeah. We talked about that yesterday. What, Santoso?
Right.
He didn't wow me. He's all right. No, the corners. I still think that outside corner is going to be a need for this team. We know Bill Belichick likes going and getting guys he's faced in joint practices. I don't know that the Giants cornerback depth is super deep, but for the right offer, if you're going to make N'Keal Harry available, I don't think they would trade Sony Michel. But if you're going to make Sony Michel available and they could use some depth at running back, especially that kind of back, I'm going to keep an eye on it because I could see somebody. The other guy I'm going to keep an eye on, I forgot about this, Sandro Platzgummer. Sandro Platzgummer, the Austrian running back. He's their Jakob Johnson. He's their international pathway player. In the first preseason game, he had like a 60-yard run or something, and the Giants went nuts. And I looked into his game a little bit. He's one of those backs that's not really good at anything, but he's not bad at anything, right? He does a little bit of everything. That's Bill's kind of back. He looks kind of like a poor man's Rex Burkhead. We know Bill likes the international pathway guys. Maybe not this year, but a year or two down the road. Like, he's a guy I could see them pursuing. So, and he's like this fun, goofy story in New York this year. I mean, Platzgummer, what a name. So I'm looking forward to getting on that bandwagon a little bit. Big Platzgummer guy over here.
There's some stat out there about Bill Belichick, especially when they hold these joint practices. The Patriots always bring in somebody from one of these joint practice camps, right? They always bring in a player that they like scouting. So whether it's a corner, whether it's the kicker, whether it's this running back that's from Europe and international pathway program type thing. Yeah, I do believe Saquon Barkley is supposed to practice, which is going to be fun. That will be interesting to see how the Patriots linebackers and safeties are able to handle Saquon Barkley. So it will be a really fun couple of days. The other thing I'm going to look for is, are the Giants potentially N'Keal Harry suitors? Because N'Keal Harry's hurt, but Joe Judge was his position coach for at least a year. I definitely a year. I don't know if it was 2. Joe Judge was his position coach for a period of time. He knows N'Keal Harry extremely well from that. I don't know. The Giants, they have some receivers, but they also could maybe use one more. We'll see what they look like, right? And we'll see what happens. And yes, one more time, I do not need to be impartial. Jerry Hughes, I hope that's not the Jerry Hughes that plays for the Bucs.
That would be hilarious. If he's watching, he can say whatever he wants. I'm honored.
This is an opinion-based show. This is a takes-based program. In case you didn't know how podcasts or sports radio works, we come on here and we give our opinions about what we see and what we feel about this team. This is not the 5 o'clock news. Okay. So thank you.
Well, it's not 5 o'clock news. It's on at 6 o'clock. Can I give you, all right, you're going to talk about N'Keal. I'll throw one out here. And I don't entirely know what this player's situation is. Josh Jackson. No, did I get that right? Yeah. Josh Jackson is a corner for the Giants. They just acquired him via trade from
Green Bay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he had really good college tape, more of a zone guy than a man guy, but yeah, good player.
But here he's a big physical corner. Yeah. He looks like the Patriots kind of corner. The Giants don't have tremendous cornerback depth, but I don't think he's a starter because they have a Dory Jackson who's going to be ahead of him, and James Bradbury should be ahead of him too, I would think. So I'm looking at this very briefly. I'm obviously not down there at Giants camp every day, but he kind of seems like he's in a similar position to where N'Keal is. Now, the difference is they just traded for him. So they clearly have a purpose for him. Nikhil wants out of New England. I don't know that they'd move him, but I didn't even realize he was on the Giants. I just looked at that. He's a guy I really liked coming out of Iowa. I really thought would be a Patriots kind of corner. I know you said he's his own guy, but just the way he manhandles receivers at the line, you can't help but see Patriots. So yeah. Could he get traded twice in one offseason? Weird things have happened. So
he went to Iowa, right? That was so they
Iowa second round pick in 2018 by the Packers.
Yeah, no, I remember vividly.
He got traded like a week ago.
Yeah, I remember vividly watching his tape. I remember everything about it. Really good ball hawk and zone coverage. Iowa was a really zone heavy team. A lot of teams in college are really zone heavy. So there's not a whole lot of teams. Bama, Georgia, maybe a couple of teams in the Ohio State region that play true man-to-man, right? So I don't know. It's not exactly a systemic fit necessarily, but I love the skill set.
Stylistic. I'd say it's a stylistic fit. Although he was traded on August 17th. So that's right. I think that's literally a week ago today. So I don't know if he's somebody you can get, but I like him for the Patriots. I do. So we'll see.
Okay, I like it. I just look at the Giants roster, look for other people that the Patriots might be interested in, whether it's the Giants or it's the Eagles. You have to think that they're going to pick up somebody from one of these joint practices that stood out to them. Alex and I are both going to be out there at joint practices on Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to do the podcast Wednesday night, probably around the same time as we have the last couple of days, to break down everything that happens on Wednesday. Going to be a fun day. Going to be a Mac day, right? They're going to be all Mac, and it's going to be really fun to see how it looks.
Practice in Patriots training camp history. The biggest single practice in Patriots training camp history. Buckle up.
Fair enough. And then Thursday is going to be really fascinating too, just because Cam should be back, right? So you're going to see Cam come back and how that dynamic plays out and all these types of things. So we'll be back on the podcast tomorrow night, like I said, to break down day one of joint practices with the New York Giants. But until then, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching, everybody.